Hello and welcome back to our last of our Best of the Decade episodes. I'm Nebula.
I'm Cruellica Kain.
And this time we're going to just take a look at the gaming, which a lot of yours are going to be stuff that you've kind of watched Kaiju play, where for me it's stuff that I've probably invested over hundreds of hours. Probably between all of these, probably close to 1,500 hours.
Well, I can honestly say Kaiju has invested since cheating's sake. It's mainly, 1, 2, 3 games on this list are mine. The rest of the list are all Kaijus, and I had to fight to get my own in there, but at the same time, I love video games, I play video games, but I have a hard time playing it as religiously, so to speak, as Kaiju or yourself.
I am more into it than him. I think even though he's got more trophies than me, it's because I really didn't start becoming a trophy collector until the last few years.
And he's also very, very, very selective of games. We have probably about 75 to 100 or more different video games, but they're very selective. And he only goes out of his way to buy ones that he knows he will play, and he will play forever.
Or he's taking a chance on it because it's a freebie when there's a buy two, get one.
Exactly. So, oh wait, I do have another one I can add to my list. So my list is not going to be in any particular order.
No, but mine will actually be pretty much an accurate countdown. And it's either I've invested a lot of time into these games and I were one of my top played, or they were a story that has stick with me and it was my choice of the top game for that year that it was released.
So mainly for this particular podcast, it's going to be the Avid Nebula show.
Yeah.
And I'll just be piping in either if Kaiju has one of the games that's on his list, or I will list one of the games either he or I had. So...
Or if you've played the game and forgot about it.
Exactly! Because I am learning all the way as I go. Because you had mentioned buy two, get one free, and I was like, wait, he bought me one of my favorite games that I actually played through and beat that he hasn't.
Yeah.
Alright, so you shall go first, sir.
Alrighty. So to kick it off is one of the new IPs that we got, and Naughty Dog's had a reputation with the Uncharted games, and then The Last of Us started to come out and trickle out with this information as this new IP and take on zombies. And when it came out, it didn't disappoint. It ended up being one of my top games of the PlayStation 3 era, and one that I really enjoyed. Didn't go through it but twice, once through regular and once through once through easy and once through normal difficulty, just because of some of the clunky control style, which the PlayStation 4 version actually runs smoother on for a remaster, which I'm going to be going through again. I keep getting sidetracked, but before Last of Us Part 2 comes out later this year, I will be going and investing myself in for another 12 to 14 hours on this game. It's one of the best performances by Troy Baker of his career, and then Ashley Johnson, who anybody from watching Growing Pains growing up has become a prolific voice actress, and now seeing the evolution of her story from this to the new one, I'm really interested to see where it takes with that, because she's become one of the best actresses for voice acting around right now.
Oh, absolutely. And this is definitely on Kaiju Okami's list. Actually, I'll put this as number 10 just for simplicity's sake as well. This actually was one of the games that he was a little hesitant on IP because he was so exhausted with the Uncharted series. And I actually was the one who bought this game for him in the expectation that he would play the game when I was here. So his first playthrough, I felt bad for him because when he, like you, when he gets invested into a game, he will play for hours and hours. There are days that he'll play for 16 hours on a video game. So he had to play this around my schedule. So
he was stuck at 4 to 5 hour intervals when the game's only about, at max, 20 hours.
Unless you do all the side quests, which he has done.
And there aren't a lot, but some of them are a little taxing.
So he's played this game about 4 times. He has platinumed it.
He didn't quite get in platinum because there's online trophies.
Well, for the non-eyeline content, he has done that. And he's played this game once while I was sitting there watching, which I know was very challenging for him because he'd have to constantly get back into it. But he's played the game multiple times, as well as he does have the PS4 upgrade,
the remaster,
so to speak.
yeah. So, on to my number 9 is, and this is probably going to shock a lot of people knowing that I'm a JRPG fan, but it was the first Tales game I had ever played. And I ended up just going, and you know what? I keep hearing about this series. I'll take the dive. What a lot of people say is a good entry point, and Tales of Xillia did not disappoint me. It's a series with Tales, you're just like, okay, where do you dive in? It's like Final Fantasy, but I ended up taking the dive, and it ended up becoming a solid game that I really fell in love with. And having multiple characters to play as, and it made the experience of going through it twice just one you want to go through. I don't know really what else to really say without spoiling it, because there is a lot of stuff I could spoil going into this game because of the way the characters, each character's arc just weaves so intertwined with each other. I don't even know where to go.
No, Tales of Xillia, because the first Tales game I played was Tales of Symphonia. Tales of Xillia is such an incredible game. I actually, not to disservice to the game, but I completely forgot I've played and owned it. Mainly because there's so many games out there. And there's so many Tales games out there as well. And so Tales of Xillia is a great, it's a great story, and it's a great entry, especially for a player like myself.
Yes, because Tales games, each one has a very different battle system. Mm-hmm. This is probably the simplest battle system to master for an action RPG.
It is, and coming from someone who likes straight RPG, I enjoy action RPG, but for straight RPG, this was a great, like, dumbed down version that got a player into the game.
Yeah, and it helped that it had a very well written story for a Tales game.
So the number 9 pick, I'm actually going to include one of mine before I go back to Kaiju's, and that's actually Persona 4 Golden. Persona 4 in and of itself was a great game. But with Persona 4 Golden for the Vita, it actually had additional graphics. It, just like with Persona 3 FES, it added more to the story.
Yeah. For you, you're a little cheating on there because I still consider that a 2009 game, even though the Vita, it was an enhanced port.
Yes.
Because
it's a separate game. And that's the one thing that you have to marvel at when it comes to Persona games is when they do a new version, it technically is a brand new game.
Yeah, it technically is, even if it has the same story ending.
Yes.
It was like one of those, like, I flipped the coin and went, you know what, I just can't put it on this list because it technically, the first version came out in 2009.
And I can appreciate that. And what is your next one?
Another one of the brand new IPs that came out over this console generation. And one that, more than likely, they could not go with another game, but if they do, I hope they do not use the same protagonist and actually have it somebody else in the world, even though Aloy is a phenomenal protagonist and one of the few female lead protagonists we've had come out in gaming in the last decade. But Horizon Zero Dawn, a game that I wish I would have gone through the platinum, but some parts of it just started frustrating me that I just went, you know what, no, not going for the platinum on it. But Kaiju, he actually platinumed this game.
I was going to say, and it's on his list of his favorite games of the decade as well, because of the fact that, the one thing he loves is he loves when you get to play as diverse characters.
Yeah.
Because so many video games have male leads or male characters. And one of his top all top characters in video game history is Samus. So whenever he gets to find a new franchise or gets into a game series, and I think that's why he enjoys Jill and Claire from the RE series, is because it's a strong female character that brings a dynamic that's so different from the storytelling. Because they're able to present something that's a little bit different than the norm.
Yeah, and with her story, it's a different take on the man versus machine sci-fi that you really hadn't seen, and Guerrilla was really just known for Resistance and I can't think of the other franchise that they had done and that before they had done this, because they were just action shooter games. Killzone, that was the other game.
Oh, yes.
Those were what they were known for before this, and now that they have this, I don't think they're really going to go back to that, especially now that the new president of Sony Gaming is the former CEO of Guerrilla Games.
Well, and the one thing I liked about it whenever I watched him with the gameplay is the benefit of seeing this dynamic storytelling where you got to see this very robust world, and until probably the last act of the game, you actually find out where they are.
Yeah.
Which is so fascinating.
And I knew where they were because living here in Colorado, I recognized every little landmark, which a European studio actually doing their research of this area of the country of Colorado, Utah, and Arizona to actually research.
And Montana, yeah.
No, it wasn't Montana, it was Wyoming.
Wyoming, yes, yeah. That's the one.
They actually ended up finding the locations and actually mapped, and actually there was a art book that came digitally, talked about how they used a program to see what this would look like 3,000 years later, what these areas would look like from just what would happen. And
with the landmarks still standing, it's like, it's not that this went into the apocalypse and everything here is gone. It's kind of like Last of Us in a way where everything still stands, but you're looking at it
from a 3,000 year perspective instead of a 30-year perspective.
Exactly, which is so amazing when you put it that way. So, Horizon Zero Dawn is one of his. Another one of his that's on this list is God of War 4.
Something I still need to play.
Because for him, and I have to admit, my watching the game and listening to even Silverquill, who has beaten the game...
He platinumed it also.
Oh, which still amazes me. Is the fact that it's an entry into a series that had a very conclusive ending for God of War 3.
Yeah, and then they also changed it into an action RPG with this one.
They did. They changed the gameplay a little bit, so it wasn't like rinse and repeat. Because with God of War, the first game, it brought a new gameplay dynamic that everybody started stealing, because you see it in Bayonetta. You see it in so many other games.
Yeah.
And not that it's a bad thing, because everybody borrows from everyone. That's the nature of it all. Because everyone's borrowed from Final Fantasy for the last 30 years. So you expect it. But with God of War 3, how that particular game ended, it was a perfect ending that if they never went back to the God of War universe, it's not like it didn't conclude. God of War 4 was a great entry of saying, you know what? That's a great stopping point for the first chapter of Kratos' story.
Yeah, let's now go on to another chapter in the story and actually have it take place. We don't know how much longer it's been, but now he's a father and having to raise a child in the age of the Norse, the height of the Norse gods, actually.
Well, exactly. Pre-Ragnarok. So it was fascinating because you got to see a whole new dynamic, and rather than just rinse and repeating what the skin, just changing the skins of the Greek gods into Norse, you actually have fully realized characters for that all, too.
And I've watched them, and Silverquill play the game, and the interpretation of Baldur and Freya is a lot like how you've seen in a lot of the mythology of the Norse gods.
Absolutely, and it's well done. And I know they're both eager, and I'm eager just because of watching it, because I can honestly say it's too advanced for me to be able to play. I'm eager to see the next story and watch it as they go through the playthrough.
Especially considering they have confirmed Thor as the game's next antagonist.
Exactly. So it's going to be eager to see that go through.
So going on to my number 7, this was one that, being a Marvel fan, I really was looking forward to, especially when I saw that the team behind it was one that I had a lot of trust in, and when Spider-Man PS4 came out, I was not disappointed. You can tell that Marvel gave them pretty much a free rein to do an original story using Spider-Man and any of his rogues gallery however they wanted to tell a story, but keeping it in the confines of what makes a Marvel story with these characters. And it brought out probably the best version of Doc Ock, and then introduced Mr. Negative to a mainstream audience that probably had never heard of the villain before.
Well, and I will admit, once again, this is definitely on his list. I know for Kaiji no Kami, if I was the one running his top 10, it would be much higher. But he loved this game, and he was a late entry into playing this game.
Yeah, because I had platinum the game already before he had even started.
Well, so had Silver Quill. Between the two of you, you had platinum, and oh my god. We are a terrible group of friends because we will give each other fake spoilers that sound so authentic that you don't know until you actually get there that was false. But watching him play this game, because it reminded me of Batman Arkham Asylum.
Which I consider, there's a reason why Arkham Asylum and Arkham City are not on my list, because they came out last decade, but also Arkham Knight was terrible.
Oh, yeah.
This perfected the formula that those Arkham games had and actually upped it. And the fact that Bruce Wayne is a strong punching character. Peter Parker is a fast character that's going to be meant for dodging, and they ended up incorporating that perfectly into this formula.
Well, they did, and they had such an interesting way of doing the battle mechanics. The fighting mechanics, the battle, the web slinging
and
mechanics.
all the little gadgets that you have in the game are actual gadgets throughout all of the comics universes that Spider-Man is in. It has been created at some point.
Oh, absolutely. No, it was well worth it, and it was interesting to watch him play this game because Spider-Man, and this is why I'll put it as his number 7 as well, is his favorite superhero. You can talk about Flash, you can talk about Batman, you can talk about Thor, Captain America. If you ever ask him who his favorite superhero is, to this day, no matter how many incarnations, good, bad, or otherwise you have, it will always be Spider-Man.
Yeah. Even though he prefers the DC universe over the Marvel universe, Spider-Man's still his favorite character.
Absolutely. And that's the reason why he keeps on coming back to the Marvel universe. That's the only reason why he came back even with the MCU, is because of the hope for the future, which was realized, of potentially having Spider-Man. And he's always enjoyed the character of Peter Parker or Miles Morales or Miguel O'Hara, because each different Spider-Man has had their own defining features, and they all represent, I guess, an element of true hope and the working man being able to put his mold out there to protect others. Kaiji no Kami might seem like an aggressive, callous person at times, but he really believes in the strength of others and the power of having goodwill. And that's the one thing that I think Peter Parker and all of the other Spider people have always encompassed. And that's why he was so happy that this game turned out to be exactly what everyone hoped it would be.
And more.
Oh, absolutely.
It built on certain characters, especially Doc Ock, in ways we hadn't seen in a long time.
And it brought in some characters that, one, I have never heard of, and gave him a great sense of nostalgia, which was very positive.
Yeah. So my number 6 is one that this series has had a track record. The original game was great. The sequel was terrible. This one was great and it ended up having a very terrible sequel.
Oh my god, that sequel was bad.
But Deus Ex Human Revolution was an awesome game that I'm going to specify on the director's cut, not the original, because the director's cut actually allowed you to end up going in stealthily through the boss fights, which this is a game revolving around stealth mechanics. And when you're dealing with a cyberpunk story like this, where you are a detective, you want to have that element of surprise as you're trying to figure out what's going on. It has gameplay that holds up even on this day for a first-person shooter that is also an RPG. That makes me have high hopes for what CD Projekt Red is going to be doing when Cyberpunk 2077 comes out. It just saddens me that Mankind Divided, because Square Enix got greedy, ended up killing what could have been a potentially long-lasting IP again.
Well, they make that mistake outside of anything and everything that's not related to Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, or Dragon Quest.
Well, yeah. And so, Kaiju loved Deus Ex Machina, especially the director's cut. I think he would agree wholeheartedly, because they had subcontracted the boss fights to another studio. That the boss fights did not seem like they were representative of the story. And as you said, they took you out of the experience. Like, kind of like with Metal Gear. Metal Gear is type of that story where you have to be stealthy. You have to be quiet. You cannot go in guns a-blazing, which is what Deus Ex did. And then when you add in these boss fights that you cannot do those rules of engagement, it ruined it.
Yeah, and then they fixed it with that, because there's only one boss fight where you really should be stuck in a no-win situation where you have to go in guns blazing, but the other 3 boss fights, I'm glad they fixed when they came out with the director's cut, and it kept a phenomenal game. It's just so bad that Mankind Divided, which only has one boss fight in it, turned out to be such a terrible disappointment.
Oh, absolutely. So, number 6 for, I guess, myself and Kaiju, because I'm stealing his list, is Witcher 3. Witcher 3, the hard part for him, which I was still amazed he even participated in the series, is he doesn't like to come mid-series. He wants to start from the beginning and play through the universe.
But luckily with this one, you can go in blind with it, because it does establish that this one's going to be more related to the books than the previous 2 games.
Exactly. And while he did feel lost in certain elements, because there were certain things that did harken back to previous games, not to the point where it ruined his enjoyment. And he is not one who goes out of his way to buy additional content for video games unless he really loves the game. And he went out of his way to get all the side stories, Blood and Wine, and I think there was one other.
Yep.
That he spent probably, oh my lord, he's played this game like 3 times. Probably he spent maybe about 300 hours.
Where I've spent over 140 hours in it.
And
that's 2 playthroughs for me.
And he also continues to play into the game when he does because each of the side stories
have a different outcome that you can pick, because everything's morally gray.
Oh yeah, no, this was one of the games that I was actually surprised, because it's so out of his wheelhouse, because it is an RPG. It
is a true Western RPG, mechanics and everything.
Absolutely, and the fact that he's played it so many times, and he loves it, and if they ever released the first 2 of the series, I know he would be right up there with it.
The first game needs a complete remake.
Oh, that's what I've heard.
So my number 5 is another Tales game, and this is because now by this point when I played this, I play about 7 Tales games now after Xillia.
Oh yeah, you jumped into the Tales universe. I only have 4 of them. You have like all of them practically.
Well, there's 14. I have a good chunk of them, but Tales of Berseria, after the letdown that was its predecessor, which is actually, this is a prequel to Tales of Zestiria, this one was a breath of fresh air. And again, a game where you have a strong female lead protagonist in Velvet. And just when she went down the rabbit hole of hell to climb back up in a revenge story, that I ended up just getting completely invested in. And then it helped that all of the side characters and then the rest of the party members in this all were memorable, well acted, and then if you played Zestiria, you knew the connections. It was nice Easter eggs, but this story held on so much better on its own that I can't go in and play Zestiria again just because the game was so bad from a storytelling and a gameplay perspective. This one perfected what was bad and told a much better story for one that takes place several thousand years prior to the previous game. And it's not often in a JRPG do you have a relatable female protagonist that looks like she's fan service, but actually she's doing that dress style because she's confident and doesn't give a rat's ass what people think of her.
Well, yeah, and I think that's one thing that I've always enjoyed about any of the Tales games I've played, is the fact that they don't go your normal route, even with a JRPG, and they don't take advantage of the player where you feel like you're not immersed in the story.
Yeah, and this has one battle system that it's probably the middle ground of the battle systems, because you do need some strategy in the battle system on this one to actually get through certain parts of the game. Because unlike other ones, you will actually have to wait out so you can actually attack again, or you're going to have to suck the soul essence from your enemies if you want to continue fighting, which added a dynamic strategy, especially when you got towards the final boss dungeon.
Oh, absolutely.
And I know this is one that you'd like to borrow and play from me.
Oh, yeah, no. I keep on meaning to get more of the Tales games as well. It's just, I'm ADD when it comes to it. Ask Suda51. I have every one of his games.
But those are ADD central games.
I know, that's why I have them. So my number 5 is actually going to be one of my own. And that's going to be the Danganronpa series. Danganronpa, I would have never even cared about this video game series if not for the first anime series. The first anime series came out, and it came out early 2010s.
Yeah, because the original first game came out in 2009 on the PSP.
Exactly. And then when, because now all the games are actually on the Vita.
And now a PS4 collection.
Yep, which I have that too. So
You're lucky you have a physical copy of that.
I got it for Christmas.
You don't want to know what they spent.
It was only supposed to be 60.
Yeah. Their 65 is what they go for on there after tax.
Oh.
And that's if you can find a copy. Now it's going for $99.
Oh, Jesus. So, Danganronpa, and I'm going to focus on 2 because that came out during this decade, technically.
2011.
Because, yes, the Vita game came out in 2010, not long after the anime series. But when Danganronpa anime series came out, I watched that on Crunchyroll in one night because it was already complete. Binged it, all 13 episodes. And I'm like, this is awesome. And then when I found out it was a video game series, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But I saw it was visual novel. And visual novel, mainly I've dealt with that because of otome and dating sim games. And if we actually went with the top 10 of dating sims, I would have an entire packed list. Because I'm sad. But when I played Danganronpa, it was actually pretty similar to like Phoenix Wright or any of those types of games.
It's a twisted take on that as well.
Oh, absolutely. And when you get to the second one, and I haven't played anything other than Ultra Despair Girls because I haven't played the third one yet.
I have the third one still. I've got to play it, but all I know is it's an alternate universe.
Exactly. But even when you have basically the first 2, which are the visual novel, and then you have Ultra Despair Girls, which is basically an action RPG. And
then the anime to tie up everything else left off.
Which thankfully you don't have to play those games for the anime.
Yeah.
But those games are so incredible, and for me, a franchise like that, to have such a well-versed dynamic story, means that they care about their fans.
And to have the balls to have the conclusion, because they knew it wouldn't work as a game, to tell in an anime.
Oh, absolutely. No, they had to have pretty strong set of cojones, because even the manga is going to conclude in the anime.
Yeah.
Because the manga is just retelling the anime and retelling the video games. There's really not much more that's going to be included.
Yeah, and then Danganronpa 3 comes out as the true conclusion, and they knew it wouldn't work as a video game, so they decided, well, let's just turn it into an anime to conclude everything.
Absolutely. And truthfully, it's a great conclusion because it really doesn't slap the fans in the face, especially the fans who are hardcore fans who love everything that's been in the franchise. So that would be my number 5 because I love it.
My number 4 is what a lot of people are considering the revival of turn-based video games this console generation. And also, it ended up taking almost 9 years between true Persona games with Persona 5 when Persona 4 came out to Persona 5. It was actually an 8.5-year gap between the two. We were waiting.
Oh, yeah, no, that was probably... And there was a lot of speculation that we wouldn't get a new entry into Persona because just after Persona 4 came out, Atlas was going through some financial issues, and they had to have dissolved, and the company who picked them up was Sega.
And Sega was just coming out riding high after they had just made a ton of money because the Yakuza series had made a worldwide sensation at this point.
And a lot of people were scared because unlike everything that Sega has done, everything Atlas has done, which is mainly Catherine, Persona,
Shin Megami Tensei,
the Devil Survivors, everything is very on the fringe of being so artsy, so off the wall. Persona 3, for example, is a dating sim where you shoot yourself in the head to summon a monster.
And I think people had actual faith because Yakuza 0 just came out when the purchase of Atlas had been finalized from Sega, and then we saw how zany that was, and like, okay, Sega did this, will pretty much publish anything now.
Well, exactly. And the one thing that I really appreciate, I don't know if it's legitimate, but from the way it's been presented, Sega lets Atlas still run Atlas how they've done it.
They still have the American office for Atlas is not in Sega's office at all. It's still completely separate from the Sega branch in California. So they're letting Atlas run itself how it's always run.
Which I appreciate that because when Persona 5 finally came out, and I say it finally like how you did, because it took forever.
And then we had because the dubbing and the script was so lengthy, it took 8 months.
I was going to say, yeah, it took about a year, but yeah, 8 months. And you don't play them typically in English. So It drives me nuts when you have to, for you at least, when you have to wait. And I play them in English because as much as I like the Japanese, it's hard for me, unlike an anime or a movie, to get immersed into a video game if I can't at least just play it and not have to worry about the language barrier. And the English cast is just as great as the Japanese cast.
Yeah, Persona 5 is like the Toku dream cast, because almost everybody in the Japanese has a Toku background.
Well, and the game itself is a love letter to noir, to spy thrillers, and to tokusatsu fans, because some of the monsters, or the personas, or the summons, or whatever you want to call them for whoever is listening, they are so Toku-ish.
And then, don't forget, the Featherman exists as their own Sentai franchise in the Persona universe.
Know. But no, Persona 5 is... I haven't completed it yet, because I got stuck in the worst level of the game.
Yeah, the space dungeon, which nobody likes. And then you got through that and got stuck on the cruise ship.
But but from everything I have played, it's so wonderful because it's a nice little love letter once again to everyone who is stuck through all the Persona games.
And this one is, in a way, a commentary on politics, and I can see where a lot of people can relate to it because it's the old guard politics versus the newer generation and how they clash with each other.
Well, and it's also, because of how the main character was treated, it's also a perfect example of classism and double standards based on your level of wealth.
Yeah.
So it just like every other Persona, it throws something in your face on social commentary and you're like, Jesus, I don't know if I need more social commentary in my video games.
To your next.
So we are at 4, right?
Yep.
So number 4, I am actually going to use this because I love watching Kaiji Okami play this game, which he has played forever. And he's played it on the PS3. He's played it on the PS4.
He's still playing the online on it.
Still plays the online with his... I have questions about his female avatar. Because, once again... Actually, I was reading this one comic series that talked about the fact that more guys play female avatars than women do.
Women tend to do the hunky male avatars.
I know! So he played every game that he can create a character, it's always a chick. Never understood why. And it's always really busty. Nevertheless, GTA 4, or GTA 5, sorry.
Yeah, GTA 5.
GTA 5, when he played this on the
PlayStation 3.
PS3, he played it 3 times.
And you guys were still in Aurora.
Oh, yes! We were still in Aurora. He played it 3 times over and over and over again. He has probably spent more time on this game than I would say planning our anniversaries.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
And when the PS4 came out, and this was one of the first games announced, he's like, fine, when I get the PS4, I'm getting GTA 5, and I'm going to play it again.
And they announced it as a launch title for the PlayStation 4.
Oh my god, and he played it non-stop. And he's played online mode forever. To the point, oh, hi, Kaiji Okami, I love you. So everybody, welcome Kaiji Okami as I'm lambasting him on GTA 5. Hi! And he's not saying anything, he's glaring. Are you going to say anything since you interrupted our podcast?
Nope.
But he has played this game so much.
What's wrong with GTA 5?
Trevor is what's wrong with GTA 5.
No, Trevor's just every player's inner fanboy.
He's not wrong on that respect at all.
No, he's really not. But let's move on before I get killed. Well, you should probably stay because I'm going to be talking about the rest of your game. So come back here. So let's have you start on number...
My number 3 is one that we've already talked about.
For you.
For him, but Witcher 3, and this is, for me, a Western RPG is something I typically don't get heavily invested in unless it's an established franchise, and I've read the books, but I never got a chance to play the first 2 Witcher games because I never owned an Xbox 360. And so I kind of just read up on the lore on those games and then ended up seeing playthroughs on those, and then got heavily invested in The Witcher 3. I ended up, between my 2 playthroughs, put over 140 hours on it, and both the expansions were probably the best DLC expansions I think I've ever seen a game come out with. I ended up getting the complete edition, not buying the DLC, so I had everything in one go, but that ended up making me just invest more time in the game once I started rolling in on it. And I kept putting it off because I'm like, okay, I know when I get into this game, I'm not going to stop playing. Yeah, 7 months straight of playing the game. That's the only game I played.
You could say Gwent went south. Went south.
Yeah, Gwent ended up just eating up way too much of my time in the game. It's like triple triad for Final Fantasy VIII. Once you start playing, you're not going to stop.
So for our number 3 game, and I say our since Kaiji Okami's here, and the top 3 are honestly his games. And number 1 and number 2, he may argue with me. But number 3...
Well, what did I miss with the other games then?
Oh, well, you can look at it later. Or you can listen to it later, actually. Number 2 is going to be Red Dead Redemption 2.
Only number 2?
Because we still have Resident Evil, Samus, Link, so many other games.
Yeah.
So, why don't you talk about why you love Red Dead Redemption 2?
Horse testicles shrink in the cold.
What? Okay, this is a family-friendly podcast for the most part.
Swamp, New Orleans, lots of cool stuff. It's hard to explain. It's immersive, the story's great, the characters rock, the gameplay is fun 99% of the time.
I will say my favorite thing about Red Dead Redemption 2 is the fact that Silverquill has found every single possible horse meme in the world on YouTube, and he constantly plays it for us, where I think I've seen probably 10 hours of horses kicking people in the face.
Oh, no. There was the half-hour video show of people getting chased by the cougars.
Oh, yes.
Or
not
no.
the female persuasion, actual cougars.
Or the deer that kept knocking people off the cliff.
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
because that deer had a vendetta.
Yeah, the game for having realistic physics, actually, for some of the bugs, is made for some hilarious YouTube videos.
It's a little too realistic.
Oh, yes. So what is your number 2?
So it's a quadrology. So 4 games, continuous series, but Falcom's known for writing expansive narratives. I have been playing the 4th game and while playing the 3rd game right now because the
You've
4th...
been playing both games at the same time?
Yes, the 4th game hasn't been translated in English yet, so I'm playing with a translation patch on the PC while playing through the 3rd game because I did this with the 3rd game as well.
Everyone, that's dedication.
Yeah.
Oh, but you've already played the 3rd game.
Yes.
So, okay, it's not like that you're watching Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi at the same time.
No.
Like 10 minutes of Empire, 10 minutes of Return of the Jedi. 10 minutes more of Empire, 10 minutes more of Return of the Jedi.
So, when XC released the first 2 games, it was like a complete story had been told, and then the other 2 games came out, but both games, their scripts, people were wondering, because XC hadn't licensed them and nobody knew what was going on, both game scripts are the equivalent size of the Lord of the Rings together.
Jesus!
Yes.
And you're playing, and these are RPGs?
These are RPGs. All 4 of these games together are 3 Lord of the Rings book series all together for their scripts, with all the side characters having very specific dialogue.
I think you'd kill Kaijin Okami in that regard. That would mean a lot of lore he'd have to get involved
Oh, it
in.
even gets better. There are actually 5 other games that take place before this in the lore.
So, The Hobbit, the bloating of the 5 games.
But that's the Trails of Cold Steel quadrology for their 4 games.
Quadrilogy.
Yeah,
Whatever. I like his words better because he calls it duology as well. I'm like, I'm just taking these words.
Yeah.
We're making them real.
But the thing is with these, I love them because every character is extremely fleshed out because you're going through their entire character arc over multiple games. And each one of these RPGs is at least 100 hours.
Well, that's a good RPG,
Yeah.
though. Because if you get into an RPG and you can finish it in less than 50 hours, that's a badly told RPG.
So you have 4 games that are over 100 hours long and there are 11 main characters for this. So you are getting the fleshed out plus multiple side characters that have come in from the previous games and the other series that this connects with. So with the Trails of series, you have to have a dedication, and I think that's why it's a niche for fans. But anybody like myself that has dove into it loves it. I'm just hoping that the 2 games that have not come to America yet, that now have PS4 ports, now will come over now that NIS America is in charge of bringing over all the games.
No, I absolutely agree with that one. And while Kaijin Okami judges, his number 2 pick that I have selected as his number 2.
Wait, you've been selecting my
Yes,
top 10?
yes.
So, with this said,
So what was your top 10?
I've been stealing from yours while
And mine.
stealing in mine. Yeah, so nevertheless, his number 2, so he doesn't interrupt me again. As I've mentioned earlier, his favorite all-time video game character is the female character Samus from the Metroid series. And he loves Metroid Samus Returns. This is one of those games that is on a handheld and he's not a huge handheld fan. I feel bad talking about him when he's right in front of me. But compared to myself, and actually compared to you, because I love handheld games. Not necessarily the mobile phone games, but handheld on my Vita and my DS, on my PSP. I have so many handheld games because I like that portability.
And they work better for visual novels.
They really do. And when he plays Samus Returns, it's always a battle. Because whenever he wants to play is when I'm going to get a new handheld game. So it's like a fight to the death, which he always wins.
What's going to happen when Animal Crossing comes out now?
Oh, I know. I can't wait for it to come out on the Switch. I am so getting that. But tell everyone why you love Samus Returns. Since you're
It's a
here.
remake of Metroid 2. But good.
Wow, you are not made for podcasts, apparently.
Well, what? You explore. You blow things up. You scream at the bosses that drive you nuts. you scream more at that one freaking boss that just is a pain in the ass.
If you ever want to see funny, we can videotape him playing Mega Man someday.
Oh, that's what we should do when we start Twitch. Just have him play Mega Man and we record that for live stream. Yeah. That's going to be our goal.
But it's a Metroid game. It's cool. It's good. It's fun. You get to kick ass.
And take names.
No, she doesn't take names. She just kicks ass.
Alright, what is your number one game?
My number one game was the top game of 2017, and a lot of people that played Breath of the Wild like to hang me for this. And it's another one of those games that everybody knows I'm already an existential, cynical person.
Oh, no, never.
But this game revels in its storytelling. It uses religious iconography. And
Horizon.
No,
nope.
We already talked about that.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's Yoko Taro being Yoko Taro. And anybody who's played Drakengard and the first Nier knows that Nier Automata is probably his best game just because he decided to hit Platinum to refine the gameplay on this.
It sounds like Horizon, though.
You could say what you want on it. But a lot of people end up looking at the character designs and going, oh, it's sexiness just for fan service. And yes, there's that in there as well, because Yoko Taro is an open pervert about what he's done in his games in the past.
Really?
But at the same time, this ended up asking the questions about man-machine, humanity, and what means of a soul, like we've had talked about in Ex Machina, if machines can gather a soul, which ended up probably being the best side story in the game altogether.
The one thing I find fascinating about Nier Automata is the fact that I have never played the game. I have interest in the game, but unlike other video games, there's actually a huge community of people who will play the fighting game adaptation of it, or...
Well, they just like the Soul Calibur fact she's a guest character in Soul Calibur.
Exactly. Or the fact that people cosplay as it, and it's fascinating because unlike Samus, because you have a lot of Samus cosplayers, you don't have too many other video games that get cosplay love.
And Nier Automata, because of the unique design of the androids, especially because they cover their eyes because they're supposed to be blind to the flight of humanity because of a plot twist you get later in the game that makes so much sense on why they do it.
No, I think that's fascinating. And it's a JRPG, right?
It's an action JRPG. And if you want to get the true ending, you actually have to sacrifice your save file.
You have to beat the game twice.
Seriously?
Five times.
You have to beat the game 5 times. And then sacrifice your save.
Okay, world of podcasts, everyone of my pop culture therapy family, I will not be playing a game where I have to sacrifice a save file because I would be, excuse my French, fucked.
And it's the only way to get the true ending.
Then I guess I'll never see the true ending unless I YouTube it. So for number one, I'm going to do my number one first, and I'm going to let everyone know his selected number one since Kaiju's here.
You mean those selected number one you picked for me?
Yes. So my number one game is actually Final Fantasy 15. I was roped into this game, and this is one of the few Final Fantasy games that I personally wanted to play. It's not one of the ones that I lynched off of Kaiji Okami and said, oh, he's playing it, let me try it as well.
Like 12?
Exactly. But when I got to Final Fantasy 15, playing all these characters, playing as Noctis, playing as Prompto, being around Iggy, being around
Gladio
and his butch buffness.
And just as we like to call him as our friend Kevin in a video game form.
Exactly. This is the one game that I love, except for one part, which Kaiji Okami actually made me hate him a little bit at that moment.
The fishing?
I played the entire game through. The reason I hate Kaiji Okami is he is a video game whisperer. Ask Chrysalige Bloodborne. Ask Silverquill. You've seen it. He can pick up a video game controller, have never seen, never played the game, and he can figure out the controls in less than 5 minutes.
So can I.
Well, you can do it, and I think that's why you two play so many similar games, is because you're video game whisperers.
Also, I play fighting games religiously, so I can pick up any game.
And he's looking at Godzilla because apparently he's going to go true to form. So, Kaiju Okami's #1 video game of this past decade is Resident Evil 2 Remake. This game is something that he has played at least, what?
7 times.
I was going to say 7 times. And he actually, without much prompting, when he found out that they were DLC, he bought it immediately, which he is the type of individual that hates going out and buying DLC.
No, I bought the original soundtrack, DLC, and the infinite ammo weapons.
And I thought you got the side stories DLC.
That was free.
Yeah, that came free because he got it with launch.
But 7 times, people.
This makes me wonder how many times he's going to be playing RE3 when it comes out in April.
Oh, probably not as many.
But 7 times, and each of those times, I have always ended up walking into the living room when he's playing at the same scene.
X going to give it to you. The best mod. That's the best mod if you haven't seen it on YouTube. Somebody actually modded that every time Mr. X walks into a room.
Oh, that would be hilarious to hear. Because I know Kaiju loves to find cosplayers of Mr. X just so he can do different videos with them. So anything that you liked about Resident Evil 2 Remake? Since you're here, you might as well talk about the damn game.
Blowing zombies' legs off and knifing them to death. Getting to finally play an updated version of the greatest PlayStation game ever made.
And what do you like about the voice acting? Is it better?
It's real voice actors. Well, I shouldn't say that because Resident Evil 2 the original one did have Alison Court as Claire, but everyone else seemed like they were just a trailer park voice actor.
Wow.
And how did you like to refine puzzles in the game?
Well, the puzzles were pretty thought-provoking. They made sense, so when you figured them out, you're like, oh, how the hell would I have actually figured that out if I didn't actually look it up?
So basically, you cheated your way through the game.
No, that's how I got through the original game version.
Oh, okay.
Mr. X was very, 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 very blood-pumping.
So in other words, you'll probably be playing this again before the next one comes out.
That, and there's a rumored director's cut coming out that's fixing some of the issues that they didn't get to do with this remake, adding in, trying to change up so that Game A and Game B are not going to be the exact same thing over, besides just the final boss, and maybe adding in the spiders back into the game.
So in other words, you will be replaying it again more than likely.
Oh,
At least 3 times.
well, at least 2 times because I have to go through someone's A and someone's B.
Oh, yeah. That's the confusing part about the game, because you have Claire A, Leon B, or...
Leon A, Claire B.
And I don't know ins or outs about it. I just remember when we had the first Resident Evil 1 remake, he played it a ton of times as well, but it seems like this one... I don't know if you'll ever stop playing the game. The fact that a remake is and he's been saying this since it came out, the fact that the remake can be his game of the year, his game of the decade.
Well, I didn't say game of the decade. I just said it was 2019's game of the year. I haven't chosen my actual decade numbers yet, because the decade's not over yet, technically.
Yeah, well, he'll be arguing this point forever.
Yeah, he'll be arguing this point until 2021.
I was going to say, I'll be arguing until January 1st.
So with that, we have talked about a ton of video games, and this is our final best of looking back on the decade.
Yeah. And with that, our next episode is going to be Star Wars fans. I'm sorry, but you need to go back in the therapy chair.
Yeah, we need to give you a little bit more help and support because, for example, after looking at a Twitter conversation between Kaiji Okami and many of the fans of Star Wars, I'm a little concerned about the levels of reality
that they live in.
Yeah, I want to make sure we're all on the same page of what exists and what doesn't exist.
But also, I have to eat crow.
I know! This is the worst part of it all. They were right.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be right.
About the new trilogy?
Yes!
Yeah, but how were we supposed to know until it finished?
But they weren't supposed to be psychic about it either.
Well, until next time, bye.